You are now listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, sharing insights through real, honest, and practical ways to improve your communication and relationships. Featuring your hosts, Dr. Pamela Kreiser, Meredith Edwards-Nagel, and Teighlor Polindo.
Are you even listening?
Am I even listening?
I don't know. Are you?
Is this a quiz?
Not yet. So we're going to do 2 episodes on the listening process, and they're called Are You Even Listening to Me? And per usual, we've got to get a hold of what this listening process is. So we want to start this episode by talking about what the listening process is. And I would say the most famous researchers out there who have really broke down the process are Wolvin and Coakley. They're the ones that did most of the important work out there in the listening process. And what they say is listening comes down to 5 different parts. So it's hearing, it's attending, it's understanding, remembering, and responding. Now, we can break down each one of those. Basically, it's the idea that the sound waves get transmitted into my eardrum. I've got to figure out what those sounds mean and attach words to them. Then I've got to figure out what those words mean to develop an understanding. Then I've got to put it in my long-term storage, my memory, my brain. And then I've got to figure out how to respond. And that's the work of Wolvin and Coakley, who have broken that down for us. So we start with hearing. So when we're thinking about hearing, we think about the sound waves traveling to our eardrum. Now, there are a lot of people in our society who are hearing impaired. Mm-hmm. So that right there, they struggle just on that first step. And often we have a lot of technology now that is helping that problem. Mm-hmm. And that's really exciting, what we've seen, the advancements in getting those waves to the eardrum. So we would think about the ability to be able to hear those sounds as the very beginning of the listening process. Okay. So that's hearing. So next is attending. And a lot of people think about this as paying attention, right? That's basically the foundation of it. This is the process of accurately identifying these particular sounds. And the brain sort of sorts what sounds are important and what sounds are unimportant. I thought of a good example. I don't know if you've ever been to a party and you've been able to kind of listen to the person over in one group and then switch to a person in another group.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or you hear your husband over in a group. You're like, I want to listen to what he's saying. He seems all animated. Let's see. But what that is attending. You're switching who you're focusing on and saying, I'm going to grab those sounds. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not just paying attention. It's what you're selecting sort of out of the environment. So that's the attending. The third part of the listening process is understanding. This is the one that we all kind of think listening is. We don't think of the other parts necessarily. And this is listening to understand. Okay. So it's where we take those sounds that we were attending to, and then we're going to put them in action in our brain and say, well, let's figure out what they mean. A good example of this is where you have maybe been traveling and you've heard someone speaking in a foreign language. You're hearing and you're attending, but you're not able to understand. You have no comprehension because you don't have a way to take those sounds and transmit them into a meaningful place in your brain. Right. So you stop after attending. You're hearing and attending, and then there you go.
It's like a listening vacation.
What does that mean? Oh, a vacation because you're traveling? I like that. I like that. So then the fourth one is remembering. And that's internally being able to recall the information. So placing it in your memory versus forgetting the information. Mm-hmm. And we probably have a lot to talk about on that one. There's some people that say, you weren't even listening to me because you don't remember anything I said. You'll hear that as a complaint. Mm-hmm. And what they're commenting on is not the whole listening process. They're saying you faltered on this fourth one. You didn't remember it. So you might have done, the hearing and the attending, attach the meaning, and then out of your head it goes. The last one is responding, and responding is where we respond back to the other communicator, and we might do that in a lot of different ways. So we'll kind of break that down going forward, and that reflects what you took in and made sense of.
So if you don't do the 5 parts, are you not listening?
I think a Wolvin and Coakley would say you aren't.
Okay.
I think there's people that like to skip some of these parts and then say, but they were listening. Like, I don't remember what we talked about, but I was listening to you. You'll hear that. People say that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You also have people that respond inappropriately. So then we question whether they were listening at all. Mm. And we'll break down some of those bad ways people respond. So do you think, Teighlor, you're a good listener?
No.
Mare?
Can I answer with what I think I am?
I think, yeah. It sounds like a good idea.
in like reviewing this and talking to just my husband about it, I feel like I remember what people tell me. Mm-hmm. I put what they say, if it's important, in a safe memory place.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I don't think that my active in the moment present listening is that great.
So that would be the attending?
Yes.
You have attending issues?
I think so.
Okay. So is it that you appear distracted, or what would be the issue?
I mean, that could just be like a season part of life. Toddler life. Attending is rough.
It's very rough when you're chasing someone around.
But let's say you're not with your kid.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Like, I feel like sometimes my mind races, or where am I, like, at an event or a party and other people are talking and I just heard something else. I'm like, okay, now my mind went there, or like, oh shoot, wait, what were you saying? But then I'll end the conversation and feel like, oh, well, I remember the subject of what you were talking about. I hope I got it.
Mm-hmm. So you're scattered a bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, could that just be my personality and I have problems there? Or
or you might be normal.
Oh, great. Finally.
There could be that. Before we dive into the different problems that are related to the process, I think we should do a quiz.
Damn it. I knew it. See?
It's been a while.
Right?
Yeah.
It just seems like the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so you ready? You got your
No.
calculator, Meredith?
Yes.
You have your calculator? There might be some numbers in here that you're going to have to run. All right, so here's the first question. On average, how many words does the average person hear in a 24-hour period?
Whoa. I'm just guessing a number.
Yeah. Not guessing, you're calculating it.
Yes, that's right.
100,000.
No. 10,000.
Meredith, you are closer. 20 to 30,000.
Oh.
So I'd say you both failed on it.
I almost said 20. I thought about it.
How great is it that I taught both of you like 12 years ago and I'm still giving you quizzes? Like, how great is that?
Is it great?
Is it great though? I know. All right, so let's do this one. The average person talks at a rate of 125 to 175 words a minute. Given that speaking rate, what do you think is our listening rate? How many words per minute?
Oh.
We speak at 125 to 175. What is the rate we listen at?
Like 75?
Damn you, I was going to say that. But no, because you said that, I'm going to say 50. 60. I'm going to say 60.
Okay, so we're going the wrong direction. We can listen faster than our speaking rate.
Oh,
So let's try that again.
Wait.
We listen faster than we speak, than speaking
Okay.
rate.
But do we understand?
Yeah, if we weren't
Well, that's a
attending.
good
You didn't
question.
say, what things do you hear? You said listen.
Wow. Already fighting the quiz. How many words?
We speak 125 to 175.
That's right.
So we can listen like 200 to 225.
Just, all right. Anything more than 225.
You're going to over, under. Yeah, nice.
Gotta go over on that one.
Yeah, so Taylor's going to win that question, but not really. So it's 450 to 600 words. I know.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You guys are all smarter than me.
And that's actually something interesting to think about, because it's one of the things that are related to daydreaming, or how we can listen to someone and do something else with our, like, think about our checkbook or whatever. That's, some of people explain that differential is where that problem lies. My capacity is way faster than the human speaking rate.
Whoa.
450 words. All right. So now we're going to restart the quiz and see if we can get a winner here. I know. Studies suggest that people listen what percentage of their day?
30. Oh, wait, no. Yes, 30.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, man, it totally depends on your job or what you do all day. I'll go 50.
Teighlor, you're very close. 55.
Ooh, okay.
She's on the board,
I got
everyone.
one. I got
On the
one.
board. Now, even though most research says that people only retain half of what other people say, a global survey asked working professionals if they felt they were good listeners. What percentage of the people they polled said they were good listeners?
80%
Teighlor, you said 80?
to 100.
Rude. Okay,
You did your 2 to 225.
I was going to say 70 anyway.
Okay. Teighlor, you're having a good night. 96% say that they're good listeners.
What?
Yeah, we
Global
overestimate
survey,
our
so
skills.
international.
Liars.
Okay,
Liars.
last question. But I think Taylor's already got it here.
That's like those people listening to this episode because they want to give this to a friend, but really they just suck at listening.
If you share this episode with a friend, you're going to have to figure out the emotional aftermath.
Yeah.
And say, honey, I have an episode to share with you. Okay. So, in the same global survey of working professionals, which was ranked as the most important in terms of listening? A, thinking before speaking. B, asking questions. C, taking notes. What was ranked the most important?
Thinking before speaking.
All right. I guess I'll say asking questions.
Meredith, you got 1 point. Thinking before speaking. Congratulations. Yes. Basically, what the polling says is we're listening for half our day. We're only remembering half of what we hear. And we're thinking that we're awesome.
Wow.
So that's not good news. But we talk about trading comfort for growth here. So we have to get after it. What are some of the problems that people have listening? And what are some of the things we want to explore? Some of the things that people might identify and then stop doing those things that harm the listening process.
I like that. What to stop.
Yeah, I want to know how to be better.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could kind of break down the problems by the 5 parts of listening that I talked about. So you have the hearing, the attending, the understanding, and remembering, obviously. And let's look at some of the problems that are related to it. So one of the things that I think we would talk about is just not paying attention.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big one.
Which at this point in our lives, I feel like we just have so much going on around us. It is hard to pay attention.
Yeah.
I notice, there are screens everywhere. That's one thing. So either you're on your phone, even like at the gas station, there's a screen. Everywhere you go, you sit at a restaurant. I always have to sit away from the television at a restaurant or I know I won't have any conversation.
Yeah.
Even if I have no interest in what's on, I just turn always. I'm distracted by it.
Yeah, even beyond screens, though, just the multitasking.
Because we're in an era where we're rewarded for that.
Yes. I think there was a time in my life, in college especially, where I thought like that was totally just possible. Like people that told me that I couldn't multitask were wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like becoming more and more clear to me that every time I try, I fail. So that one strikes a chord with me a lot. Like, I think I can do this at the same time. Like sometimes, like my husband will be like, can you like pay attention or something? I'm like, well, I'm just doing this really quick. Well, he's like, no, but I don't really feel like you're paying attention to me because you're trying to do something else. Like, well, I'm talking to you.
Right.
So the person that's speaking doesn't necessarily feel like they're being heard when you're doing something at the same time that they're telling you something.
For sure. It's interesting. A couple studies that I read said that as you get older, you put more effort towards listening intentionally. So that's good news for us because we're all getting older.
I like that.
So there's a little bit of hope there. But on the bad side of it, I read this in an article. They talked about what is the impact of multimedia and specifically television on our attention spans. And what we have become trained to do is to expect a 7 to 10 minute program with a commercial break. That's approximately the length of content that you have before a break, right? So the problem is if you over years keep listening in that pattern, some of the research suggests that it would affect your ability to listen to a lecture or a conversation or anything over that 10-minute marker. And when I read it, I was like, yikes, because I lecture for an hour and 15 to 3 hours, depending on my classes.
Ooh.
So I should expect a solid 10.
Isn't there something about television and is it like every 20 or every 2 seconds? What is it? I think it's every 2 seconds the shot changes.
Oh, yeah.
That's also shortening our attention span. Like we don't do the long camera shots anymore because we are constantly expecting a change. And it's lowering our ability to sit and look at something for a long period of time.
And I think we talked about this in that episode called What the Fub. So that's on our episode 15, which is What the Fub.
like that.
So we talked about the problem of not paying attention, and then that's not attending. You might hear the sounds. They might hit your eardrum, but you're not attending to them. So you're not paying attention. Sometimes we do fake attention. And I heard that a little bit in what you were describing, where we might fake attention even though we're not checked in. So some people call that like pseudo listening.
I'm trying to think. Like,
Yeah,
when
that's kind of
people
like
do
a-
this.
I mean, I've done it. I've been like, if you're like stressed out or you're grieving or you're like on another planet in your own world, or you're in a conflict with your partner and you're at a party and you're just like checked out kind of, you never, I don't know. I'm just thinking of a bunch of examples.
Yeah, you're preoccupied with some bigger thing.
Yeah. And then someone talks to you and you're just like trying to look at them and pay attention, but you're like, I just can't take any of this in right now.
Well, that's related to stonewalling. It sounds like emotional flooding, right? Episode 5, we talked about shutdown mode. I think I'm present in the conversation still, but I've checked out.
Yeah, it's a checked out type of thing. I don't think it always comes with like a malicious intent. And
Yeah.
I've been there before where someone's talking to me about something and I'm like, I feel bad, but this is not important to me. I can't
Right.
engage. I'm
Right.
trying to just nod my head. Or or like, have you ever done it where like someone tells you a story like about somebody that you have no idea who these people are and they just get into detail and you're like, I'm lost, but I don't care enough to ask
Are
you
you
to
talking
stop.
about Taylor?
No, this
What?
is like one of my biggest pet peeves.
I'm kidding.
You're
Yes,
telling
like
me
when
about people that I don't know and I don't care. No,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
not
okay.
always true, but
We have to just be real. There are people out there in your families, more specifically, that they're just like telling you about stuff, and you're like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know what you're saying. Don't necessarily care to stop you because you're not interested in stopping to care if I know who these people are. So I'm just going to pretend
Right.
like I'm listening. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's a win-win.
So we're not justifying bad listening
Oh, okay.
behavior, though, on this episode. So
You're right. You're right.
we
Rewind.
could call it a win-win, but what we would also call it is not listening. We would say listening didn't occur. So later
Yeah.
when we talk to you, you're not going to remember what those details are,
Yeah.
nor will you have a response that reflects that.
Yeah, like my good memory I told you about earlier in those examples. Don't remember any of those stories.
So let's talk about some things that are some problems that might interfere with our understanding and remembering.
Okay.
okay, this is where I feel like I'm the bad listener because I feel like I pay attention and I feel like I don't fake it because I think
Okay.
there's like a quiz coming after. So I'm like, I like to ask a lot of questions.
You do that.
But I
like
was
that.
thinking, like, I think this is a part of my debate training is kind of like preparing your answer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I rehearse an answer, but I'm like getting ready to say something. I kind of like took a few keynotes and I pinpointed some words and I'm going to bring that back. And I didn't really listen because I'm really just thinking about my response to something they said.
That's right.
Yeah. So I know this isn't necessarily like a holiday specific like topic that we're into right now,
Okay.
but this lights up in me the holidays, the rehearsing your answers, or the next one, which is the selective listening. It's like, what's the politics or the religion at the table or the converse family feud or whatever the issue, the tension at the table is. You're like, that person will always be like this. I knew they were going to say that. And so you listen for the thing you know is coming, right? In quotes.
Okay.
I
So those are two different things you're talking about. So there's
Oh.
one that's rehearsing the answer, getting
Yes.
ready for the response. So you're basically skipping the understanding and you're like, I'm not going to understand. I'm just going to go straight to how I'm responding.
I've felt that on me before, and I hate that. You
Yeah.
don't even listen to me.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
So the thing you were talking about though, Meredith, is selective listening.
Yes. Sorry, I meant to break them up. Yeah.
Listening for certain information. And what's interesting to me about that is when we do that selective, where we're just listening for only certain information or only things we're interested in, when we're doing that selective process, we're actually not in reality anymore
Never thought about that.
because we're not actually engaged on a real level. We're just, I'll just look over this whole conversation and pick what I want to hear.
What is that? Confirming biases?
For sure it could be. Yeah.
That's very interesting and challenging.
That one really seems to come up. That's like a big dinner table one, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
That's all
I think-
all I can think when I see selective listening is dinner table. Big family, lots of different culture or age groups or backgrounds or whatever. But
Yeah. Insulated listening is I'm only hearing what I'm expecting, and I'm avoiding new information. That's what's insulated about it.
Yeah, it's
So
a
I'm looking
stuck
for the
place.
thing to confirm that I was right about you. I was right that you were going to bring up these points of view or this problem again, or you were going to attack this person at the dinner table for their view.
Yes.
But I'm not willing to hear the new things you have to say about it. I'm just
Yes.
going to confirm all those things that I was expecting.
And regretfully, I know there's people in my family I have treated this way. I have insulated my listening towards. And what it makes me think is it's the complete opposite of trading comfort for growth. It's like the refusal to grow, just to be stuck in this way towards
good.
someone.
That's good.
And I was reading that like, no, I have done this.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all done all of them.
Yeah. Okay, good. I don't suck the most here.
I mean, I think so.
That's a tough one. What about you, Teighlor? What do you think about that one?
I'm sure I do. I thought of like those arguments on social media where they just explode in the comments and it's like no one is listening to anyone.
Right.
And you actually can, because you can see what they're saying and you could have read it over and over and responded, but instead they just kind of stick with whatever the original misunderstanding was and they just beat it out. And that's what I see. I'm like, did you
Yeah.
I don't like those forms of communication.
Right.
The refusal to listen to new information, I find kind of insulting, I guess, like you said, but in the sense that you don't ever let someone have the opportunity then to grow or change themselves.
Yeah.
What if they admit they're wrong, or, oh, I didn't understand it that way, or, oh, that's a good point. Like you cut all of that out and you kind of have this idea of someone and you just keep going with it regardless of any new information. And that is annoying.
It seems like we would do this with family maybe more than other people. Hold them to the image we have of them rather than really hearing their new information. So Teighlor, have you ever seen that video, that popular video called It's Not About the Nail?
It's not about the nail. I think that's what it is. We got to put in the show notes. I think we've talked about it a few times that I tend to go the more masculine route of communication, whatever the book says, like, oh, mostly men do this. I tend to identify with those things. And so when I started dating my partner, he showed me that video. You should really just go watch it. But it's this female complaining to what I assume is her partner about this pressure and just kind of all these things. Oh, it's so frustrating. I'm having pressure. Like, I have this issue. There's no solution, kind of like complaining. And the guy,
you got to explain the shot.
The video
zoomed in.
It zoomed in on her face. You can't really see anything. And then finally zooms out and you see a big nail hammered into her forehead.
Yeah.
And the guy is trying to offer solutions like, well, I think if we just took out that, and she's like, stop talking about the nail. It's not about the nail.
Yeah.
The video is much funnier. I think you should just watch it.
He's trying to fix it.
Yeah, he's trying to fix it. And then she's like, you're never listening. You just don't listen. And so he finally tries and he says, oh, I'm sorry about that. And
he's like, that must be hard. And she's like, yes, it is hard.
And you finally get me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing we're talking about, obviously, is insensitive listening. So listening for not the emotional side of the meaning of the messages. So listening to other parts and responding to them rather than the emotional meaning.
Yeah, I struggle with this, I think, big time. I'm like, you're talking about it because you want a solution, because you want to get to the bottom of it, because you want to adjust the issue. You want there to be resolution. You want that, right? That's why you want to talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That talking about it just to be heard, I do not relate with that at all. I don't understand.
I can appreciate some venting. Like if someone were to be like, I just want to vent real quick. All right. But if someone's like complaining about something over and over, I'm like, no, you want this to be solved, right? Like you want this to change. So let's change it. And then they don't. And you're like, I am insensitive.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're talking about here, though, is a misunderstanding of the purpose of the conversation.
Yes.
So,
fully.
Teighlor, you don't have a conversation where you're venting?
It's pretty rare. I don't think that is what I do. No.
Yeah. Because if you have someone who's a venter, wants to get it off their chest, and then you have a fixer.
Yeah.
Listening, that fixer is going to jump in just like that. It's not about the nail video and try to jump in there and solve it. Pull the nail out. That'll solve everything.
Depends what kind of venter you are, though. Because I think I can vent. And I have vented to Teighlor directly because I know that it's not going to be like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, well, let's do something about it. And I want that.
Yeah, you can vent, but you're open to like, well, how are we improving this? Or attempted to learn to just acknowledge like the feeling that they're
That must be very hard.
well, normally, which I think is mostly true to what they're saying, I'm like, that just sucks, man. That sucks. And I can say that with them. But most of the people I think who vent to me are not looking for a solution or help. I noticed that with the questions I ask because I don't know that I mastered the neutral questions episode. And I kind of am always playing the devil's advocate. And if you want to be venting and just have your emotions validated, having sort of questions placed back to you is not what you're looking for.
So you're not the person.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But you can become the person, Teighlor.
Yeah, I do. I do try. But if you need help with something, give me a call because I will come up with lots of solutions for you.
So we have a difference on the podcast here. We have two fixers, and then me. I'm not a fixer necessarily. I can turn it on as a fixer if I want, but that's not my immediate response.
Interesting.
So
You're a good, because you didn't say if you thought yourself as a good listener.
I do consider myself a pretty strong listener. I don't know if I'd give myself a 96%, top 100 A+ or whatever, but I think I would say I'm pretty skilled. But part of what I think I'm skilled at is because of doing so many mediations that requires so much listening. So what does that bring us to? Of course, you know what I'm going to say, everyone. You have to practice this.
Yes.
So here's the homework for the two of you.
Okay.
Next time somebody vents, maybe let them and don't fix it.
Mary,
That's
we
the
can do
homework.
this together because we need to practice our emotional language also. So like we'll practice expressing our emotions, and then the other person will practice not fixing them and just hearing them and validating them.
Okay, we'll have to meet 5 minutes a week on this. That's all I can
So
say.
two wrongs do make a right?
Yeah, the two wrongs help each other go right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a surprise.
Find you a friend that's willing to let you practice this. I know you always talk about like role playing certain things, and I think about that a lot in a lot of our episodes. Like, how can I practice that, or let me take a stab at that before it's real time and I'm just like lost and twisted and bad at it.
Right. The thing to think about for this episode is, am I doing things that suspend me out of reality in that conversation? So am I doing things like rehearsing my answers or picking out information to get you?
That getting ready to respond, rehearsing your answers is a good one to stop. That's one where you could role play in your own mind. When you're thinking of what is going to come out of your mouth next, and you can stop that, right? I've done that before when someone's talking. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm waiting for their pause, and I know when I'm doing that. I'm like, oh, I'm actually not totally paying attention to you right now. Maybe you can ask, like, can you say that again? And completely understand that. Could you say that one more time to give yourself a second shot at stopping to think about what you're going to say and just listen? I don't know.
I think you could do that. I think it's not as good as stopping. I think it's about listening. And I think on this list, so let's go through them. We had rehearsing your answers, selectively listening, so only information you like or want, insulated, avoiding new information, insensitively listening, ambushing. And so if I were to identify one that I would need to work on, it would either be rehearsing or ambushing. And I would tie it back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is in the listening process, where's your vulnerability? And that is me thinking about my response. Because I'm collecting information based on how I want to respond.
Yeah.
Right.
Dang.
So Teighlor,
I never
you
thought
talked about
it
being
in that way.
Yeah, Teighlor, you talked about insensitive and some work to do there. What would you say, Meredith, of the ones we've talked about?
My vulnerability or my weakness in this is in the listening process of the attending of the scatterbrained. It's not like I'm completely like that. Like, I know that sometimes I'm not, but it's that stop multitasking, do one thing at a time, slow down. It's just a kind of a theme in a lot of things that I want to do better at. It's just time, like slow down. Do one thing at a time. If that person that's speaking, especially if they're important to you, the way you show them is listening to them and to slow down. It's a way of loving them, I think. I'd like to be better at that. Where can we learn more about listening?
Our next episode is part 2 of this, where we're going to talk about the types of listening and understanding the context, and then we'll deep dive into responses that we do. So we will see you then.
I like that. Yeah.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please remember to rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And thank you for listening to Asking for a Friend.
Let us know what you thought of the episode. Our email is hello@afafpodcast.com. This show is for educational purposes only and is copyrighted. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. Thanks for listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc.